Here sits your former identity. The repetitive thoughts that circle endlessly. The emotional loops you can't escape. The past experiences you refuse to set free. As long as this baggage remains with you, your world stays frozen in place. This burden doesn't always show up physically. Usually it's completely hidden, a quiet weight you've been shouldering for decades. Yet you feel it in that chest tightness each dawn. In that inner voice whispering, keep your expectations low. In those cycles you promise to break but keep recreating. It's embedded in your autonomic responses, your biochemistry, your smallest choices. This isn't merely history, it's a broadcasting signal. Like a melody trapped on repeat, your former self keeps playing while your aspirations remain paused. Here's the secret they don't share with you. You cannot enter your transformed existence while staying faithful to yesterday's energy signature. Most individuals miss this completely. They attempt to create change through altered thinking, through mental imagery, through written intentions. Yet beneath the surface, they remain the identical person, still awakening with the same emotional chemistry, still carrying the same narrative, still waiting for external circumstances to transform, while they vibrate at yesterday's frequency. Let's be completely transparent. That persona, your previous version, was constructed for one purpose: staying alive. It emerged during suffering, as a response to being dismissed, failing, or feeling let down. You never consciously selected it. It was a knee-jerk response, a protective shield, a persona you adopted for safety. Over years, that persona became second nature, comforting. You lost sight of it being a mask, and now it seems like your authentic self. But consider this. What if it's not? What if that inner critic saying you're unprepared, or it's too dangerous, isn't reality? It's simply the echo of a version you haven't released. Quantum mechanics reveals something groundbreaking to us. Our world doesn't exist in isolation. It mirrors back the consciousness observing it, your energetic state. You aren't disconnected from the quantum realm. You are the quantum realm, materialized into physical form. So each time you awaken and embody that outdated identity, what does existence deliver? Identical patterns. Not because you're jinxed, not because your approach is flawed, but because the universe honors consistency, and you serve as its tuning device. You don't create what you desire, you create what you embody. This explains why the work isn't about constructing a new persona. It's about dissolving everything that isn't authentically you. Your former self seeks to maintain your safety, but security isn't your spirit's mission. Remaining stuck isn't your fate. That burdensome identity you've carried, the one forged through wounds, humiliation, setbacks, or dismissal, isn't the version destined to experience the reality you've seen in your peak moments. That elevated reality is present now, and it exists currently, not in some distant tomorrow, but in an alternate frequency, in a vibration you harmonize with rather than pursue. Yet here's the challenging reality. You cannot reach that dimension while emotionally dependent on your history. You can't continue recycling guilt, bitterness, or self-questioning and anticipate growth. You can't appear as yesterday's model of yourself and access a timeline you've never encountered. So what's our approach? In this exploration, we will shatter this cycle. We will encounter the former self, not to condemn it, but to free it. We'll acknowledge its lessons, then grant it permission to go. United, we will step into the quantum realm, not through language, but through energetic resonance. And I'll support you in dissolving the energetic blueprint of yesterday, so you can finally occupy the version of you who already experiences the existence you've been requesting. Because the universe isn't demanding greater effort from you. It's waiting for you to attune differently. You aren't trapped because your destiny isn't genuine. You're trapped because your sense of self keeps materializing identical circumstances repeatedly. But once you transform that, once you release the heaviness, the wounds, the definitions, you'll observe something remarkable. Existence will reshape itself. Your world will reorganize. The quantum field will respond. not due to your words, but due to your transformation. Now breathe deeply. Something is already awakening. And it isn't approaching from external sources. It's emerging from your core. Are you prepared to encounter the version of yourself that's already liberated? Let's proceed. You open your eyes. Identical surroundings, identical mental chatter, identical internal dialogue streaming through your consciousness before you're fully conscious. I hope things change today, you might consider. But the instant your feet touch the ground, your physical form has already decided differently. Why? Because well before your aware mind starts generating, your unconscious identity has assumed control. You don't enter a fresh day. You enter a familiar self. Repeatedly. Your body holds memory. It remembers your identity, not as recollection, but as cellular programming. Feelings transform into chemical sequences. Actions become involuntary. Eventually, you cease responding to current moments. You merely recreate yesterday continuously, until now feels stagnant and starts resembling endless repetition. Dr. Joe Dispenza tells us that once you reach 35, 95% of your being consists of memorized responses, emotional triggers, unconscious routines, embedded perspectives, convictions, and viewpoints. Put simply, most of what you consider you isn't genuinely you. It's mental programming. It's learned behavior. It's the former self, and it's in charge. Bruce Lipton takes this further. The instant you alter your perspective is the instant you rewrite your body's chemical makeup. This means your chemical, emotional, and energetic state is literally composing the reality you're experiencing. This explains why transformation feels so challenging, because you're not simply attempting to change your thinking. You're attempting to break your body's emotional dependency on being that particular version of yourself. The version that anticipates letdowns, that's ready for abandonment, that doesn't trust they deserve significant things, not because they're damaged, but because at some point they determined it was safer to anticipate less. You didn't select this existence, but somewhere along the way your system concluded that pain was predictable, and predictability can feel secure, even when it causes harm. This becomes the true cage, not external circumstances, but the identity we fear abandoning. Even when it's damaging our health, even when it's robbing our happiness, even when we recognize deep inside it's not our true nature. So let me inquire with kindness, not criticism. Which feelings do you experience most frequently? Is it remorse, frustration, embarrassment, uncertainty, skepticism? What if these emotions aren't accidental? What if they're practiced? What if your body has become dependent on these signals because they strengthen the chemical identity of your former self? And if this is accurate, what type of reality do you imagine that emotional transmission is drawing in? Here's the harsh reality most people never face. Your former self isn't simply a memory. It's an energetic magnet, and the quantum field responds not to your positive statements, not to your dream board, but to the emotional frequency you emit constantly. You might declare you want connection, but if your foundation is, "I'm insufficient," you will push away closeness. You might picture prosperity, but if your emotional foundation is anxiety, you will unconsciously resist opportunities. Not because you're undeserving, but because your nervous system hasn't upgraded to the version of you that's prepared to receive. This explains why you can consume every book, attend every workshop, recite every affirmation, and still feel immobilized. Because transformation isn't purely intellectual. It's vibrational, physical, molecular. So what's next? Initially, we illuminate this cycle, not to criticize it, but to witness it. To understand that who you've been isn't a permanent truth. It's a rehearsed frequency. one you can cease practicing the moment you choose to stop identifying with it. This isn't about self-hatred. This is about self-freedom. About allowing yourself to stop carrying the burden of a version of you that only existed to survive a version of the world that's gone. Here's the gorgeous contradiction. The instant you begin observing your former self without becoming it, when you watch it through the lens of your elevated self, you transform into the witness. And in quantum language, this changes everything. The witness collapses the probability wave. The moment you recognize your former self as a pattern, you are no longer that pattern. You become the awareness observing the pattern, and that recognition is the first beam of light in an entirely new reality. But let's go deeper into what's actually happening in your brain during this shift. Neuroscience shows us that when you observe your thoughts and emotions without identifying with them, you activate your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for higher-order thinking and conscious choice. Simultaneously, you begin to quiet the amygdala, which is responsible for fear-based reactions and survival responses. This neurological shift is measurable. Studies using brain imaging technology show that people who practice observer awareness literally rewire their neural networks within weeks. The neural pathways associated with your old identity begin to weaken through lack of use, while new pathways associated with your elevated identity strengthen through repetition. This is why ancient meditation traditions emphasized the practice of witnessing consciousness. They understood, without modern technology, that the act of observing your thoughts without becoming them creates actual structural changes in your brain. They knew that consciousness observing itself is the mechanism through which transformation occurs. What's even more fascinating is that this observer awareness doesn't just change your brain, it changes your entire nervous system. Your autonomic nervous system, which controls functions like heart rate, breathing, and digestion, begins to shift from a state of sympathetic dominance, fight or flight, to parasympathetic dominance, rest and digest. This shift allows your body to access states of coherence, creativity, and healing that are impossible when you're stuck in survival mode. So now I invite you to participate, but not simply through likes or subscriptions. I seek something more profound. Pause for a moment and share this statement below. I am prepared to release the version of me that no longer aligns with my destiny. Not as ceremony, not as a trend, but as a proclamation. A deliberate interruption in the cycle. A message to the field that you are no longer available for yesterday. And if this message is stirring something within you, something ancient, something sacred, something awakening, then I invite you to subscribe not just to this content, but to this new frequency. This space isn't about data, it's about metamorphosis. And if you're ready for that evolution, you are precisely where you belong. We've been instructed to request, to trust, to envision. Yet so many of us remain in waiting mode, waiting for the breakthrough, for financial abundance, for the ideal partner, for the transformation to finally occur. And when it delays, we doubt ourselves. We question if our methods are wrong, if we're energetically blocked, if perhaps we're not destined for expansion. But what if the issue isn't that your vision is too grand, but that your frequency remains too recognizable? Here's the reality. Most manifestation methods overlook. The quantum field doesn't respond to your statements. It doesn't react to your vision boards. It doesn't even register what you claim to desire. It reflects only one element, your state of existence. This is the principle of energetic alignment. In quantum language, alignment occurs when your heart, mind, emotions, and behaviors are completely synchronized. It's the energetic agreement the cosmos awaits. Not the type of agreement you journal about or voice once each morning, but the type of agreement that is lived, felt, experienced, maintained. You cannot override your frequency through manifestation techniques. The field doesn't register, "I desire wealth." It registers, "I feel inadequate." If that's your daily emotional reality. It doesn't perceive your ideal home if you're dwelling in fear. It doesn't recognize your longing for love if your emotional residence is isolation, envy, or unworthiness. Not because the field is harsh, but because it is precise. Consider the quantum field as a reflection. You don't lift your hand and expect the image to lift the opposite. You must genuinely shift for the reflection to follow. The challenge is, most of us attempt to manifest from our existing identity. We employ the perspective of our current self to try accessing a timeline that belongs to a completely different version of us. But your future self, the one experiencing the life you want, doesn't merely think differently. They exist differently. They feel differently. They enter spaces differently. They communicate from a deeper source. They've transitioned from wanting to be. Let's examine this more scientifically. Every thought you generate emits an electrical impulse. Every emotion you experience radiates magnetically. Combined, your thoughts and emotions create a vibrational transmission, like a radio frequency, continuously sending a message to the quantum field. And that message isn't what you want, it's who you are. But here's what most people don't understand about this process. Your brain operates at specific frequencies measured in hertz. When you're in fear, doubt, or anxiety, you're literally broadcasting in the lower frequency ranges, what neuroscientists call beta and gamma waves. These frequencies create a chaotic electromagnetic field around you that repels the very experiences you're trying to attract. It's like trying to tune into a classical music station while your receiver is stuck on static. Your heart, meanwhile, generates an electromagnetic field that's 60 times greater in amplitude than your brain and extends several feet beyond your body. When your heart is in a state of appreciation, love, or gratitude, it creates what the HeartMath Institute calls coherent heart rhythms. This coherence literally changes the information your electromagnetic field is broadcasting to everyone and everything around you. Think about this for a moment. You are not just a physical body moving through space. You are a walking, breathing electromagnetic transmitter, constantly influencing the quantum field through the quality of your thoughts and emotions. Every person you encounter, every opportunity that shows up or doesn't, every synchronicity you experience is responding to this electromagnetic signature you're carrying. This is why two people can walk into the exact same room with the same opportunities available and have completely different experiences. One person's electromagnetic field is broadcasting, "I am open, I am worthy, I am aligned," while the other is unconsciously transmitting, "I am closed, I am not enough, I am disconnected." The quantum field responds to both exactly as they are, not as they wish they were. So examine this. What are you transmitting? Does your internal frequency align with the reality you claim you're prepared for? Or are you still broadcasting scarcity, anxiety, uncertainty, and impatience, while attempting to tune into a timeline built on appreciation, confidence, happiness, and prosperity? Picture attempting to hear a beautiful symphony, but your radio remains tuned to interference. That's what occurs when your former self attempts to reach for a new timeline. If this is resonating with you, hit that like button and subscribe, because we're just getting started with quantum transformation. And this transcends positive thinking. That's superficial. This is about energetic authenticity, because the cosmos, the field, doesn't respond to what you say. It responds to what lives in your nervous system. One of the most profound insights from Heisenberg and the observer effect is this: the act of observation collapses possibility into reality. But here's the twist. It's not simply that you observe existence. It's that who you are while observing determines what manifests. Neville Goddard expressed it perfectly. You are not manifesting. You are choosing. And who you're being is the chooser. Let that penetrate. You are not drawing in a future. You are tuning into one, selecting it, aligning with it. But you can't align with something your current self has never experienced. That's why the transformation is internal. You become the version of you that naturally attracts what you've been trying to pursue. You don't pull things toward you. You elevate yourself. This explains why manifestation without identity transformation will always feel like moving mountains. You're attempting to construct a future on the foundation of an obsolete self. And regardless of how magnificent the design is, if the ground beneath hasn't transformed, the building will crumble. Here's a practical example of how this plays out. Imagine someone who grew up with financial scarcity, trying to manifest wealth while still carrying the nervous system patterns of lack. Their conscious mind might repeat affirmations about abundance, but their autonomic nervous system is still firing in patterns of scarcity every time they see a bill, check their bank account, or think about making a large purchase. Their heart rate increases, their breathing becomes shallow, stress hormones flood their system, and their electromagnetic field broadcasts the very frequency of lack they're trying to escape. The quantum field responds to this authentic signal, not the surface-level affirmations. This is why so many people feel like they're doing everything right but not seeing results. The transformation has to happen at the deepest levels, in your nervous system, in your cellular memory, in the unconscious patterns that run 95% of your life. This is why the identity shift is so crucial. You're not just changing your thoughts, you're changing the very operating system through which you experience reality. Consider how your former self moves through the world. How do they walk? What's their posture like? How do they breathe? What's the quality of their voice? How do they handle stress? How do they respond to opportunities? All of these micro-behaviors are broadcasting information about your identity to the quantum field every moment of every day. Now imagine your future self. They walk with confidence, but not arrogance. Their shoulders are relaxed because they're not carrying the weight of the past. They breathe deeply because they trust life. Their voice carries conviction because they know who they are. They handle stress with grace because they understand that challenges are simply opportunities for growth. They recognize opportunities immediately because they're not clouded by fear or doubt. So, here's the inquiry that matters more than any vision board. Who must I become to vibrationally match what I desire? Not eventually, now. In this instant, in thought, in emotion, in action, in embodiment. Because when you become, the universe mirrors back. Not slowly, but immediately. Not always in physical form initially, but in energy, in signals, in synchronicities, in sensations. You'll recognize it because you'll sense it. That subtle pull indicating you've tuned into something authentic. You'll stop feeling like you're forcing and start feeling like you're flowing in the right direction at the perfect moment, taking right action as the right version of yourself. And that's when the field begins to respond, prepared to discover who your future self already is. You don't need to construct the new you need to remember them. There exists a version of you who already vibrates at the frequency of everything you've ever requested. Not a future version, not a theoretical ideal, a very real, very alive self that exists right now in the quantum field. And the only separation between you and that version is your vibrational state. This might sound revolutionary, but quantum physics has been teaching us for generations. Reality is not sequential. Time is not rigid. You are not traveling down a linear path from point A to point B, gradually building toward a future self. What actually exists is an enormous, limitless field of present moments, all happening simultaneously, all accessible, depending on what you tune into. In quantum terminology, we call this the multiverse. In spiritual terminology, we call this infinite possibility. Regardless, the message remains consistent. The you who is flourishing, healed, empowered, magnetic, is not approaching. They are already present in a different frequency, a different vibrational signature, a different state of being. And your mission is not to chase them. Your mission is to eliminate the gap between where you are and who they are, by becoming vibrationally compatible. But let's pause momentarily, because this isn't merely theoretical. This is deeply actionable. So ask yourself, if your highest self were already living through you, what would they think? How? Absolutely not. Your higher self vibrates from trust, from alignment, from centered confidence and magnetic tranquility. They don't manifest through struggle, they attract through coherence. Their energy communicates before they speak, and everything in their existence, from relationships to wellness to purpose, responds accordingly. Because here's a truth most people overlook. The universe doesn't reorganize itself because you're deserving. It reorganizes because you're resonant. And resonance is not something you plead for. It's something you embody. That's why the most powerful transformation you can make today isn't external, it's internal. It's choosing to stop identifying with the old narrative and start aligning with the new one. And not because it's already here physically, but because you've decided to meet it vibrationally. You step forward first, then the pathway appears. So, let's dive deeper. Take a moment and close your eyes. Imagine yourself entering a space. The version of you who already experiences the life you desire is present there. Feel their energy, not as something distant or mystical, but as someone familiar because they are you. They've always been you, just waiting for you to remember. Observe how they carry themselves, the relaxation in their shoulders, the brightness in their eyes, the certainty in their voice. They don't need to persuade anyone. They emanate truth. They've released the burden. They've dissolved the old programming. They've collapsed the version of themselves that was built on fear, and in its place, they've allowed a new identity to emerge. And now ask them, what did they release to become this free? Because the new self is not built by accumulating more. It's revealed by removing, by peeling away layers of conditioning, pain, and pretense until all that remains is essence, soul, truth, alignment. This is the transformation. You are not becoming something. You are remembering something. You are not constructing a new reality. You are tuning into one that already exists. And here's where it becomes magical. The moment you do, the moment you stop identifying with the old frequency and start vibrating as the new self, the field responds. Gently at first, a thought you've never had before, a person connecting unexpectedly, an intuitive pull towards something your old self would have dismissed. The more you follow that current, the more the new timeline stabilizes. You begin to notice synchronicities, coincidences, openings, because you're no longer on the frequency of resistance. You're on the frequency of reception. And here's the most beautiful aspect. The old self doesn't need to be destroyed. It simply needs to be retired, appreciated, honored, released. Because it was never wrong. It was just outdated. Like software that kept you operational, but not free. But what does this stabilization process actually look like? In the beginning, you might notice small shifts. Perhaps you wake up feeling slightly different, more peaceful or energized than usual. Maybe you find yourself making choices that your old self wouldn't have made, speaking up in a meeting, taking a different route home, or reaching out to someone you've been thinking about. These small changes are actually profound quantum shifts. Each time you choose from your new identity instead of your old one, you're collapsing a new possibility into reality. You're literally selecting which version of the multiverse you experience. The more consistently you choose from this new identity, the more momentum builds. As this momentum increases, you'll start to notice what quantum physicists call non-local correlations. Meaningful coincidences that seem to defy logical explanation. You'll think about someone, and they'll call. You'll need something, and it will appear. You'll feel drawn to go somewhere and encounter exactly what you need. These aren't accidents. They're evidence that your new electromagnetic signature is attracting aligned experiences. This is when people around you start to comment that you seem different. They can't quite put their finger on what's changed, but they can feel it. Your energy has shifted, and energy is something that everyone picks up on, even if they can't consciously identify it. Some people will be drawn to this new version of you, while others might feel uncomfortable, because your elevation challenges their own limitations. Understanding this helps you navigate the transition period with grace. Not everyone in your life will be excited about your transformation, and that's perfectly normal. Your new frequency naturally attracts people who match your elevated state, while creating distance from those who don't. This isn't about judgment, it's simply about vibrational alignment. So release it, and step into the self who already knows how this journey ends. The self who's already walking in alignment with the future you thought you had to chase. You are not attracting your new life. You are aligning with the version of you that's already living it. Are you ready to meet them? Let's not simply discuss change. Let's feel it. Let's become it. Because no information, no insight, no teaching, no matter how powerful, will ever transform your life unless it becomes embodied. This is where the shift becomes real. This is where the new timeline stabilizes. Through intentional ceremony, through energetic declaration, through complete commitment, right now you're going to guide yourself into a quantum identity transformation. Not through force, not through trying, but by dissolving the identity that no longer serves your future and stepping into the one. Phase 1. Identify the former self. You can't release what you don't acknowledge, so give your old identity a designation. It could be a word, a nickname, a symbol, something that captures who you've been, the you that's been cycling through fear, doubt, limitation. Perhaps it's the skeptic, the perfectionist, the one who compromised. Whatever designation emerges intuitively, claim it. Now address that identity. Appreciate it. It preserved your life. It helped you endure. But it's not the one who will guide you forward. Phase 2. The ceremony of release. Visualize yourself carrying that version of you like a heavy burden, like the image from this exploration, dragging luggage filled with memories, stories, patterns. And now see yourself pausing, removing it, setting it down. You don't need to eliminate it. You simply need to release it. Picture yourself walking away, lighter, taller, clearer. You've dissolved the energy that kept you trapped. And in doing so, you've created space in the field for a new frequency to emerge. Phase 3. Embody the new self. Who are you now? Feel it. In this moment, stand or sit in the posture of the version of you who already lives in alignment. The one who trusts their inner knowing. The one who radiates peace. The one who no longer needs to chase because they are what they once sought. How would they breathe, speak, observe, respond to challenges? Shift into that version now. Phase 4. Anchor it with a declaration. Repeat the following phrase, not mechanically, but with presence, with embodiment, with choice. I no longer materialize the past. I attune to who I truly am. Again, I no longer materialize the past. I attune to who I truly am. Let those words be a frequency, not just a mantra. Let them cut through the old signal. Let them resonate in your cells. You're not just saying them, you're becoming them. Because every cell in your body, every atom in your being is listening. And more importantly, so is the field. As you vibrate as the new self, the field begins to rearrange. Possibilities that were once invisible begin to surface. People who match your new energy begin to appear. Your outer world doesn't shift because you begged for it. It shifts because you became someone new. You are now walking in resonance, and that resonance is your new reality. Here's the final piece. Ceremony is not just a one-time event. It's a doorway, a frequency you revisit every time the old self attempts to return, because it will. Not to sabotage you, but to be witnessed, to be reminded that you've outgrown it, and each time you choose. This is where most people struggle, and why maintaining your new identity requires understanding and patience. Your old self isn't trying to sabotage you when it resurfaces. It's simply following the neural pathways that have been carved deep through years of repetition. Think of it like a river that has been flowing in the same direction for decades. Even when you redirect the water, it will naturally want to flow back into the familiar channel until the new path becomes deeper and more established. When old emotions arise, and they will, remember that this is your nervous system releasing stored energy from the past. These emotional releases are actually signs that the transformation is working. Your body is literally detoxing from the chemical addiction it had to being your former self. During these moments, the key is not to resist or judge what's coming up, but to observe it with compassion. Say to yourself, "This is just energy moving through me. This is not who I am now. This is my system clearing out the old to make space for the new." This acknowledgement alone helps the energy move through you more quickly instead of getting stuck in resistance. Some days will feel more challenging than others. You might wake up feeling like your old self has returned completely. This is normal and temporary. These are what we might call integration days. Days when your consciousness is integrating the new identity more deeply into your cellular structure. On these days, be extra gentle with yourself and consciously choose actions that align with your new identity, even if you don't feel like it. So here's your practice. Every morning before the world intrudes, ask yourself, which version of me will materialize reality today? And choose consciously, lovingly, powerfully. Because when you do, you're not just changing your life, you're changing timelines. And the ripple of that choice moves through the quantum field like a wave, reshaping what's possible, not just for you, but for every life you touch. You've reset your identity. You've dissolved the past. You've entered the field as someone new. When you finally release who you were, reality begins to rearrange itself around who you truly are. Not someday, not after months of work, but now, in this moment, because the shift doesn't begin when the world changes. It begins when you change. And maybe for the first time in a long time, you're feeling it. That lightness, that strange mixture of peace and possibility. That inner whisper that says something has shifted. That's not your imagination. That's the field responding. Reality has always been more flexible than we were taught. Not fixed, not rigid, but fluid, dynamic, alive and waiting. Not for you to chase it, but for you to tune into it. This is how quantum manifestation actually works. You don't drag your future toward you. You rise to meet it. You become the frequency of the life you desire, and the external world, by universal law, must conform. Not because it's magic, but because it's physics. Because your vibration is the blueprint of your reality. And when your vibration changes, your life cannot remain the same. Look around. Nothing may appear different yet, but you are. And that alone changes everything. Because from this point forward, every thought you choose, every emotion you embody, every belief you reinforce, is either aligning you with your expanded timeline or calling you back into the past, and you've already made your choice. So now the real practice begins. Not in theory, but in life. When an old emotion surfaces, you'll remember, this is not me, this is residue. When an old pattern attempts to play out, you'll pause and say, I no longer materialize that version of me. When fear whispers, you'll respond with presence. When doubt returns, you'll breathe deeper. You'll speak softer. You'll act from a place the old self never had access to. You are no longer broadcasting the past. You've changed your signal, and that change has consequences. Beautiful, unimaginable, soul-expanding consequences. Some you'll recognize immediately. Unexpected clarity, elevated synchronicities, people showing up differently around you. Others will be more subtle, but just as real. A sudden sense of alignment, ideas that flow effortlessly, moments of divine timing that confirm you're finally walking with your true self. The observer effect is now working through you. Every moment you observe from this new identity, you collapse new possibilities into your reality. You're not just watching your life unfold, you're actively selecting which version of reality materializes through the quality of your observation, through the frequency you maintain while witnessing your world. This is why ancient wisdom traditions spoke of killing the ego, or dying before you die. They understood that to birth the new self, the old must be consciously released, not destroyed with violence, but thanked and gently dissolved. You've just performed this sacred death and rebirth, not as metaphor, but as quantum mechanics. So, as we close this sacred container, I want to ask you something deeper than a like or a subscribe. If this exploration woke something inside you, if it reminded you that there is a self within you that's not broken, not wounded, not stuck, but infinite, radiant, whole, then leave something in the field. Make your presence known. Speak not just to me, but to your future self. Comment below. The former me has been dissolved. Let it be your signature, your energetic signature to the quantum field. A ripple, a vibration, a declaration. And if this space has felt like more than content, if it has felt like remembrance, then come closer. This isn't just a channel, it's a frequency, a home for those of us collapsing timelines and rising into the versions of ourselves we were born to be. So, subscribe not just to stay connected, but to stay coherent, stay aligned, stay elevated. Because the real shift isn't just personal, it's collective. And the more of us who vibrate as our highest truth, the more this world begins to reflect that truth back to us. You are not alone in this. You are part of a field of beings awakening to their quantum nature. And now that you've remembered, you can't forget. The old you has completed its purpose. The new you is already writing the next chapter, and reality, it's listening. Now that you understand how to dissolve your former self, you need to master the specific quantum techniques that make reality transformation effortless. Watch Why No One Gets Quantum Manifestation, Even Though It's Simple, to discover the missing piece that makes this process automatic and unstoppable.